Announced earlier this year, Pentiment is a murder mystery narrative adventure from Obsidian Entertainment set in 16th century Bavaria. Joining me now to discuss are game director Josh Sawyer and art director Hannah Kennedy. Welcome.
Hello, thank you.
So Josh, this is a game that you've been kind of kicking around and pitching for a pretty long time. How much has it sort of evolved to get where it is today? Like, I guess from your original idea to what is coming out this fall.
Yeah, it's evolved a lot. I mean, my original idea way back when I started in the industry in the late 90s, I wanted to make a game like Darklands, which is this early 90s historical fantasy role-playing game, and very, very different from what Pentiment is. I always knew I wanted to make a historical game of some sort. I went to college, got a degree in history. I thought it'd be really cool, but the form that took changed quite a bit over time, and it wasn't until about the time that Microsoft acquired Obsidian that I started thinking about making a historical game in the style of a narrative adventure game like Night in the Woods or Oxenfree or Mutazione.
Music to my ears. Now, fantasy is great and everything, but it's nice to get a little bit of history in there. Hannah, can you talk a little bit about the sort of art historical influences on this?
Yeah, definitely. So the game is set from an artist's perspective at a very specific time. So we reference the art of the time period pretty literally. We would look at the mediums that they were using, the compositions of images and printed books versus illuminated manuscripts, and find a way to combine aspects of each to use in context of the story, where the time period is this, transition period between when people were illuminating these books by hand and starting to print them, and how that was affecting society and the way that people thought about art. So because it ties in with the story so well, the art style of the game sort of being this meta experience of the art that was being made made sense and had a lot of really interesting opportunities for what we would do with that kind of creatively in the game space. So we were referencing art history pretty directly throughout.
Nice. And I mean, the main character is an artist within the context. Is he based on any actual historical figure or artist?
Yeah, I mean, we were referencing Albrecht Dürer's self-portraits pretty specifically. It was a fun sort of, there were a couple artists of the time period to explore, but he has a lot of images of depicting himself, which is an interesting thing. We don't have photographs of people from that time period, so that's really the only evidence we have of, how they thought of their own image, what their own ideal self would be, and he kind of fit the age and the time period in them.
It's Dürer, he's fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you get to do a rhinoceros from someone's description of it at any point?
No spoilers.
Now, what's interesting about this is it's set over the course of 25 years, which I feel like is the kind of scale of a narrative you'd see in a novel, but it's kind of unusual for games, which they often sort of hand wave the passage of time. I guess, can you tell me a little bit about the pacing or sort of how that unfolds?
Yeah, so we were referencing, or in my mind I was referencing a Tarkovsky film called Andrei Rublev, which is about the titular character is a Russian monk who illuminates icons, and it's about a big section of his life over many, many years. And I thought it would be interesting to see not only one character kind of changing over that time, but also society and one community changing over that period of time. Because the game is also about a time of change. The early 16th century in the Holy Roman Empire, the Reformation was going on, the German Peasant War was happening. So there's a lot of upheaval, and seeing a community and an individual go through that change, I thought would be really interesting.
Now, your sort of reputation is for games where there's just consequences have value and weight. Can you tell a little bit about sort of without spoiling anything, I guess some of the cause and effect at play here?
Yeah, I mean, one of the most notable things, because it's kind of the most obvious, is each murder that happens, there are multiple murders that happen that you investigate, each murder that happens has a number of suspects that you can investigate, and they all seem equally plausible depending on how you look at it. You're not a real detective, there isn't a court of law that you would understand in a modern context, so when you kind of hand someone over as a suspect, you're kind of just using your best judgment, and we don't tell you who the real murderer actually is. It's whoever you really accuse of it. And when you do that in a small community, people understand that you're the person that put that. This is someone's friend or father or comrade, and so people react to that. You see changes within the community and also people's relationships with you. That's the most notable one, but also we try to do smaller tracking of little interactions that you have with people where they note the way in which how religious you are or how impious you are, and that will affect their opinions of you when you try to convince them to do things in the future. And that can actually be seeds that are planted 25 years in the past that then come to fruition much later.
Is it possible to just like totally screw something up? I guess what does losing at this game look like? Is that a thing?
Not really. It's mostly about making the best of a bad situation and seeing what the consequences are. It's not really about, you're never going to see like a game over screen.
It's not really trying to speed run it, you know.
No, you're making choices within the story and seeing the consequences of it. Even the things we have that are mini games are not there for challenge. They're there just for kind of immersion in the story. So it's meant to be very light and easy. It's really there for the experience and the vibes. Just playing through and seeing how things go.
Nice. Now, Hannah, I love the aesthetic. Was there ever a moment where it looked more like your shirt, where it's like more of the just black and white woodcut?
Yeah, I mean, we had a lot of exploration in the initial sort of experimentation with what we ended up with, but black and white was never in isolation something that we considered, I don't think, because it just would have been, clarity-wise, really, really difficult to work with, and because we were merging these two styles, where we did want to also reference the illuminated manuscript sort of look, the painterly look, that would have been very stark to transition between the two. So we have, some characters that are done in the more woodcut style, and you can tell the lines are thicker, it's a little more geometric, they're more modern in context of the story, and then with the older characters, especially in the first act, you'll see these crusty old monks, and they're done in this very painterly style, and even as they age, you'll notice the paint start to fleck off them a little bit, which is a fun little.
I love it. Well, one request, please do a Hieronymus Bosch game next. That's something I would very much like. Pentiment comes to PC and consoles, or Xbox consoles this November, which gives you just enough time to brush up on your art history and mystery solving skills, and there's plenty more Gamescom 2022 on the way.